Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. At a party with my husband's friends, I tried to kiss him while we were dancing. He pulled away and said, "I would rather kiss my dog than kiss you." Laughter burst around us. Then he added, "You do not even meet my standards. Stay away from me." The laughter swelled. I smiled like I felt nothing, but when I finally answered, the room went silent. Some words sting, but mine cut deeper. Remember when someone asks what you do? Just say you work at the hospital? Devin coached me as I zipped myself into the designer dress he had selected, but never once complimented. Do not mention you run the cardiac unit. These people do not want medical talk at parties. He was rehearsing me again the way he did before every gathering with his investment firm crowd, scripting my responses to ensure I never outshone him. 5 years ago, he had bragged to everyone about marrying a surgeon. Now, he treated my career like an embarrassing secret that might slip out if I was not careful enough. I stood in front of our bedroom mirror, adjusting the emerald green fabric that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The dress was beautiful, I suppose, but it felt like a costume for a play where I had forgotten my lines. Behind me, Devin continued his ritual, checking his collar for the 17th time. Yes, I counted. It was easier to watch his obsessive adjustments than think about how we had gotten here. "The Whitfields will be there," he said, scrolling through his phone. "Remember, he is in mergers and acquisitions, not private equity. Do not mix that up again. And his wife's name is Nicole, not Naomi." I wanted to tell him I had been calling her Nicole for 3 years, and that the Naomi incident was his mistake at last year's holiday party. But corrections were not part of our script anymore. I watched him transform in the mirror, each adjustment to his appearance another step away from the man who once brought coffee and flowers to the hospital after my toughest surgeries. "I saved a 12-year-old boy today," I said quietly, testing the waters. His mitral valve was. "That is great, honey," Devin interrupted without looking up. "But nobody wants to hear about blood and procedures over cocktails. It makes people uncomfortable. Stick to light topics. The weather, vacation plans, maybe that new restaurant downtown everyone is talking about." The weather. 5 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, 2 years running the cardiac unit at one of the country's best hospitals. And he wanted me to discuss cloud formations with investment bankers who probably could not locate their own pulse points. My phone buzzed. A message from my surgical team. The boy was stable, already asking when he could play baseball again. His mother had cried when I told her the surgery was successful. Those tears meant more to me than any party invitation, but mentioning them would violate Devin's careful rules. "Also," he added, finally looking at me through the mirror rather than directly, "Anthony asked about the fundraiser next month. I told him we would take a table. It is 50,000, but it is important for visibility." 50,000 for visibility. Meanwhile, the pediatric ward needed new monitoring equipment that the hospital board deemed too expensive at 30,000. I had planned to donate personally, but apparently our money was already allocated for Devin's networking opportunities. "Ready?" he asked. It was not really a question. He was already heading for the door, expecting me to follow like an accessory. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. Devin reviewed names and details about the guests, treating me like an actress who needed coaching before a performance. "Tom Morrison closed that pharmaceutical deal last week. Congratulate him, but do not ask for details. Avoid Nicole if she has been drinking. She gets chatty about their marriage." I nodded at appropriate intervals, thinking about that boy's mother, how she had grabbed my hands and blessed me in 3 different languages. That was real. This elevator ride to another party where I pretended to be less than I was. This was the performance. The valet took our car with practiced efficiency. Devin's hand moved to my lower back as we entered Anthony's building, not out of affection, but positioning. He did this at every event, marking his territory while keeping me at a precise distance that suggested togetherness without intimacy. "Smile more tonight," he whispered as we waited for the penthouse elevator. "You looked miserable at the last party. These are important people, Maya. My career depends on these relationships." His career. Never ours anymore. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, and I watched Devin transform completely. Shoulders straightened. Smile activated with practiced precision. Voice dropped into that confident register he thought sounded authoritative. "Anthony," he called, releasing my back to shake hands with enthusiasm that would evaporate at home. Devin and Maya. Anthony said my name like an afterthought. His eyes already moved past me to see who else had arrived. That was my role now. The afterthought, the plus one, the silent partner in a partnership that was anything but equal. Nicole approached with air kisses and champagne. Maya, darling, you look lovely. That dress is divine. Devin has such good taste. Even my appearance was credited to him, as if I were a doll he dressed for display. Thank you. I responded with the measured tone I had learned to keep conversations brief. Too much enthusiasm invited follow-up questions. Too little marked me as difficult. The balance was exhausting. Maya works at the hospital. Devin interjected smoothly when Anthony asked what I had been up to. Just works at the hospital. Not runs the cardiac surgery unit. Not saved a child that afternoon. Not earns twice his salary keeping people alive. Just works at the hospital, as if I organized files or delivered meal trays. I stood there in my expensive dress, holding champagne I did not want, smiling at people who looked through me rather than at me, and made a decision. Tonight would be different. I would try one more time to connect with the man I had married. If that failed, and part of me knew it would, at least I would know I had tried everything before whatever came next. The music shifted from cocktail jazz to something slower, more intimate. Anthony led Nicole to a space near the terrace doors. Brandon pulled Lauren close, whispering something that made her laugh and rest her head on his shoulder. I stood at the edge of their happiness, holding my empty glass like a prop I had forgotten how to use. Couples moved together with natural ease. When had Devin and I lost that? Had we ever had it? A server passed with champagne. I exchanged my empty glass for a fresh one and drank it faster than I should have, the bubbles a brief distraction from the ache in my chest. Across the room, Devin was deep in discussion with Sean Porter and a client whose name I had already forgotten, his hands moving animatedly while they nodded like synchronized puppets. The piano intro of a familiar song filled the space. It was not our exact wedding song at the Drake Hotel in Chicago, but close enough to catch my breath. That night, Devin had pulled me onto an empty dance floor at 2 a.m, both of us barefoot and drunk on possibility. We are going to have such a beautiful life, he had whispered. Kids, a house with a garden, Sunday mornings on the porch. Everything, Maya. The memory pushed me forward. My hand found Devin's elbow, the fabric of his suit smooth under my fingers. The conversation stopped mid-sentence. Sean looked irritated. The client seemed confused. Devin's jaw tightened. I had broken protocol. Dance with me. The words were smaller than I intended, more plea than invitation. Devin's eyes flicked to his colleagues, calculating. Refusing would look bad. Accepting would interrupt his networking. He weighed options, then found the path of least resistance. Gentlemen, if you will excuse me, he said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Duty calls. Duty. His hand on my waist felt perfunctory, positioned at the exact distance that suggested marriage without intimacy. My hand on his shoulder met fabric like armor. We began to move, mechanical, like two strangers following dance class instructions rather than a married couple sharing a moment. The Patterson deal looks promising, he said, eyes focused somewhere over my shoulder, tracking the room. That is nice, I murmured, trying to pull him closer, searching for an echo of the man who once danced with me until sunrise. His body resisted, maintaining that careful distance. Around us, other couples swayed with easy intimacy. Nicole had her arms around Anthony's neck, laughing. Brandon and Lauren were barely moving, just holding each other. Even the older couples moved with comfortable familiarity that made my chest tighten. The wine, the music, and the memory of better times created a dangerous hope. Maybe if I could bridge this distance, remind him of what we used to have. I leaned in. It was not dramatic, not passionate. Just a simple kiss, the kind married people share at parties when the music is soft and the lighting is forgiving. The kind that says, "We are still here." Devin jerked back so violently that several people turned to look. His face contorted with genuine disgust, as if I had tried to force something toxic into his mouth. And then, loud enough for everyone to hear, he said, "I would rather kiss my dog than kiss you." The laughter was immediate and cruel. Anthony nearly spilled his drink. Nicole's hand flew to her mouth. Sean actually applauded. The sound crashed over me in waves. Each laugh a separate wound. Devin was not finished. The laughter had fed something in him. He raised his voice for an encore. "You do not even meet my standards. Stay away from me." More laughter. Someone whistled. A phone appeared in someone's hand. My face burned, but my body went cold, frozen in the center of their amusement like a specimen pinned for examination. The room spun, not from champagne, but from clarity. Every red flag I had ignored assembled itself. The anniversary dinner he canceled for an urgent client meeting that his social media revealed never happened. The separate bedrooms during stressful quarters that somehow extended for 8 months. The perfume I did not own on his clothes. Mysterious charges explained away as client entertainment. I love you only as a response, never an initiation. I stood there in my expensive dress, surrounded by laughter that sounded like breaking glass, and understood with perfect clarity that I had been performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation on something dead for years. Something shifted inside me. The humiliation burned, but underneath it, something colder emerged. Something that knew the difference between being hurt and being destroyed. They were still laughing, but I was not broken. My smile started small. Not the polite smile for board meetings. Something deeper. I watched their laughter falter and die like a flame deprived of oxygen. You know what, Devin? My voice was steady, clinical, the tone I used to explain terminal diagnoses. You are absolutely right. I do not meet your standards. His smirk widened, mistaking agreement for surrender. Your standards require someone who does not know about the Fitzgerald account. The words landed like instruments on a steel tray. Devin's expression shifted. The smugness drained away. Sean looked at him sharply. The room went quiet enough to hear ice settle in someone's glass. What are you talking about? Devin's voice lost its confident timbre. I pulled out my phone. Your standards need someone who did not spend the last 3 months documenting every discrepancy in our accounts. Someone who did not hire a forensic accountant when she noticed $50,000 moving through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Nicole leaned forward with genuine emotion for the first time. Anthony set his drink down with a sharp click. The air changed from cruel amusement to electric tension. This is ridiculous, Devin said, his voice cracking. I swiped with deliberate slowness. Here is the audit report. Shell company registrations. Bank transfers on the same days you claimed to be at conferences you never attended. I turned the screen outward. Sean, Tuesday, March 15th, 3:47 in the afternoon. Should I play the recording of you two discussing how to destroy evidence before the quarterly review? Sean's tan went gray. You cannot. I touched play. Devin's voice filled the room from my phone speaker, tiny but unmistakable. We need to wipe everything before Davidson checks the books. Transfer it through the subsidiary, then close it down. Make it look like a client error. A glass dropped and shattered against marble. Anthony stumbled backward, steadying himself on the wall. The Fitzgerald account, he breathed. That was my father's retirement portfolio. Your standards, I continued, also require someone who does not know about Jasmine. Who is Jasmine? Lauren's voice was sharp, but she was not asking me. She had turned to Brandon, whose face had gone pale. The 23-year-old intern from Brandon's firm, I said, watching the dominoes fall. The one who needed that marketing position so desperately. The one Devin has been visiting at her apartment every Thursday. She is Brandon's cousin. Lauren's hand connected with Brandon's face before he could respond. The slap echoed. Your cousin, the one you said needed help with her career. Your standards need someone who does not read text messages, I said, scrolling. Like this one from 3 hours ago. Cannot wait to be done with this boring party, so I can see you tomorrow. Maya is so desperate it is embarrassing. Or last Tuesday. My wife is pathetic. She actually thinks I am working late. Nicole moved closer, reading over my shoulder. Oh my God, she whispered, then louder to Anthony, the pills. The pills missing from our medicine cabinet. You said you did not. What pills? Anthony asked, confusion genuine. The little blue ones, Nicole said, voice rising. You said you did not need them, but they keep disappearing. And now, she turned on Devin. You were at our house last week for the game. You used our bathroom. Devin lunged for my phone. I sidestepped with the precision I used in operating rooms. He stumbled past me, catching himself on a decorative table that wobbled under his weight. The Whitman portfolio, I announced to a room frozen in horror. Check your statements. Really check them. Those spectacular returns Devin has been showing? Creative mathematics. The money has been siphoned into accounts in Panama. The Federal Bureau of Investigation knows. You are lying, Devin said, high and desperate. I opened another document. The federal prosecutor's office disagrees. This is confirmation that arrest warrants will be served Monday morning at your firm. During the partner meeting, Assistant United States Attorney Patterson thought the timing would be particularly effective. The room erupted. Anthony shouted about his father's money. Nicole screamed at him about the pills and asked how he could not have known. Lauren demanded that Brandon explain. Sean frantically typed on his phone. Through it all, Devin stood frozen in the chaos he had created. "Oh, and Devin," I said, my voice cutting cleanly through the noise. "Your mother knows everything. Lorraine called me last week after her accountant found discrepancies in the pension fund you manage for her. We had a very interesting conversation about where your father's retirement money actually went." His legs seemed to give way. He sank into a designer chair, head in his hands, reduced to something small and pathetic. For once, he had no script. The sound of my heels on marble was the only noise as I walked to the door. The crowd parted, some staring with shock, others with something like respect or fear. At the entrance, I turned once. Trust fund kings and queens reduced to accusations and panic. And in the center, my husband. No, my soon-to-be ex-husband, finally understanding what humiliation felt like. I stepped into the hallway. The elevator chimed cheerfully, an absurd soundtrack to the destruction behind me. As I waited, Nicole's voice called out, "Maya, wait." She stood in the doorway, makeup smeared, clutching a diamond necklace she had been flaunting. "This necklace," she said, trembling. "You said it was bought with the Sherman Trust funds?" "Check the purchase date against the withdrawal records," I said. "March 28th. $42,000. You might want to take it off before the asset freeze hits Monday. They will consider it evidence." She yanked it off so quickly the clasp broke, diamonds scattering across marble like broken promises. The doors closed on her scrambling to collect them. I set a timer in my head. 30 seconds. That is what I gave myself to shake, to feel the magnitude of what I had done. My hands trembled on the rail. 28. 29. 30. I straightened, pulled out my phone, and typed a message to my lawyer. "It is done. Everything is in motion. File the papers Monday morning." The reply was immediate. "Security footage. Make sure Patterson knows." The doorman nodded politely as I crossed the lobby, oblivious to the storm 40 floors up. Outside, the valet brought my car. I had driven separately, knowing somehow I would need my own escape route. The drive home was automatic. Our house stood dark against the streetlights, looking exactly as it had 3 hours earlier, though everything had changed. Inside, I moved with purpose. Box after box came up from the basement. His diploma came off the wall. Into the box. His cufflinks. His suits and garment bags. Polished shoes. The watch his father had given him. I held it for a moment, remembering his pride, remembering the man he had pretended to be. My phone buzzed. Devin's name appeared over and over. I let it ring as I packed. Then the texts. "Please let me explain. You do not understand the pressure. You have ruined everything. I will make you pay. Please come back. We can fix this." The whiplash might once have affected me. Now it was evidence of a man scrambling for handholds as he fell. I found our wedding album in the bottom drawer of his desk, hidden under tax documents. Ivory leather cover, gold initials. Inside, a woman in white smiled back, radiant with certainty. Devin stood beside her, looking at her like she was everything. When had that look changed? The tears came then, not for him or for us, but for her, the woman who had believed in forever. I sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by boxes, and cried for the death of her naive faith in happy endings. My sister, Erica, called. I saw Nicole's video. It cut off mid-scene, but there was screaming. "Are you okay? Can you come?" My voice sounded raw. "Already in the car. I will be there in 3 hours." The next morning arrived gray and quiet. Erica had arrived at 2 in the morning with a suitcase and groceries, found me asleep on the couch, covered me with a blanket, and started coffee. "You have a meeting," she said, handing me a cup. "Assistant United States Attorney David Patterson, 9 o'clock, Café Luna." Patterson was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with clear sight lines to both exits. He stood when he saw me, professional but not unkind. "Mrs. Hartley, soon to be Dr. Maya Lawson again." He nodded, understanding. I slid a Universal serial bus drive across the table. 3 years of evidence. My mother noticed the first discrepancies. She is a retired accountant and does our taxes. I documented everything after that. He reviewed the files, his expression growing more serious. "This is comprehensive. With what you revealed and this documentation, we have enough for federal charges. Devin's assets will be frozen by noon. Anthony Whitfield and Brandon Coleman are under investigation as well. And my immunity agreement? Ironclad. You were unaware when it began. You reported it as soon as you discovered it, and you are cooperating fully. You are protected. Back home, Erica had rearranged the furniture, pushing Devin's chair into the garage and centering the couch I had bought before meeting him. The one he always complained was too soft, too blue, too something. He hated this couch, I said, sinking into it. Remember when he made you skip Dad's 70th birthday? Erica asked. Said it was a critical client dinner. He was at a club opening with that crowd. We sat in comfortable silence, two sisters finding our way back. Then we opened her laptop and began making lists, lawyer appointments, financial advisors, therapy, practical steps toward a life that would be mine alone. Monday morning brought sunshine through the hospital windows. Erica left for Milwaukee at dawn. I drove to Northwestern Memorial in Chicago on autopilot. My mind carefully split between the surgery ahead and what was happening across the city. The patient was 17, a basketball player from Lincoln Park High School who had collapsed during practice with a previously undetected heart defect. His parents sat in the waiting room holding hands with desperate hope. I focused on their faces as I explained the procedure, using their fear to anchor myself in this moment. In the operating room, my team assembled with practiced efficiency. Dr. Rodriguez, my senior resident, studied monitors and made notes. Lauren, my favorite surgical nurse, a different Lauren, laid out instruments with methodical precision. They moved around me like a well-rehearsed orchestra. Scalpel, I said, my voice steady. The weight of the instrument felt like truth. Here, in this sterile room with its clear objectives, I could save a life while another life, the one I had built with Devin, officially ended. The surgery entered its third hour when Dr. Rodriguez commented on my unusual calm. You are different today, Dr. Lawson. More focused somehow. If only he knew that every precise cut was a meditation against imagining Devin's face when the agents entered that conference room. The partner meeting always started at 10. The arrests would be public, visible, impossible to spin. For hours in, we encountered unexpected scar tissue from an old injury. I worked through it methodically, rerouting vessels with the same patience I had used to document 3 years of financial crimes. Hearts could actually be repaired. Marriages built on lies could not. 7 hours and 14 minutes after the first incision, I closed the final suture. The boy's heart beat strong and steady on the monitors. Beautiful work, Dr. Rodriguez said as we scrubbed out. That kid is going to play college ball because of you. I checked my phone. 17 missed calls. 3 from numbers I did not recognize, likely reporters. The rest from various partners at Devin's firm. The news had broken. In my office, I had barely sat when Nicole appeared in the doorway. Gone was the polished woman from Friday's party. Her designer clothes were replaced with a simple sundress. Her face was bare except for streaks of mascara. Can I come in? She asked softly. Of course. She sat carefully, as if she might break. Anthony was arrested an hour ago, she said. They came to the house. They had a warrant. They took everything, computers, files, even our phones. Our accounts are frozen. I could not get cash for gas. I am sorry you are going through this, I said, meaning it. Whatever Nicole's faults, she had not orchestrated the crimes. Am I? She looked up sharply. Friday night when Devin said those things to you, I laughed. I have laughed at you for years, Maya. Every party, every gathering, we all did. We called you the Ice Queen, the robot surgeon who did not know how to have fun. The confession hung between us. And the whole time, she continued, tears falling, Anthony was stealing from his own father and from clients. He had affairs. There is a separate credit card I never knew about. The agent asked me about trips to Las Vegas I did not even know happened. My desk phone rang. I let it go. The display showed a name that made Nicole flinch, Devin's firm. They are all calling me, I said. Some fishing for information. Some trying to distance themselves. Some pretending they had no idea. Did they know? She asked. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I recognized, Devin's former assistant, Meredith. Dr. Lawson, I want you to know that many of us knew about Jasmine and the others. I am sorry we never said anything. He used to brag at happy hours. Said you were too focused on work to notice. Said he was planning to leave once the Singapore deal closed. I have documentation if you need it for divorce proceedings. I showed Nicole the message. She read it twice, her face crumpling. They all knew, she whispered. At every party, every dinner, they all knew our husbands were destroying us for sport. My phone rang again. This time I recognized the number. Lorraine Hartley. I had been dreading this call. I should take this, I told Nicole. She stood to leave, then paused. Maya, that strength they mocked you for, do not lose it. It is the only reason you are still standing while the rest of us fall apart. Lorraine's voice was crisp. Maya, I owe you an apology. I have been a terrible mother-in-law. I disapproved of your career, pressured you about grandchildren, criticized you for not supporting Devon's ambitions properly. I said nothing. I hired an investigator 6 months ago, she said. The pension irregularities were too obvious. I know everything, the affairs, the stealing, the lies. I have spoken to the federal prosecutor. I will testify against my own son if necessary. He was trying to transfer the house into my name, I said, to hide assets from lawsuits. The paperwork was drawn up but never filed. She exhaled, grief and fury braided together. I raised him better than this. His father would be devastated. 3 months passed. Autumn turned Chicago's skyline into a study of gray and gold. I sat in my home office, composing an email to journalist Malcolm Chin. Subject line: documentation you should see. The attachments, court filings, arrest records, a timeline, were public records scattered across databases. I consolidated them into one devastating package that would appear first whenever anyone searched Devon's name. My phone buzzed. A message from Jasmine. We had been in contact since I connected her with attorney Vanessa Anqua, who specialized in cases against predatory executives. Lawsuit filed this morning, Jasmine wrote. Emotional distress and pregnancy discrimination. Vanessa says the timing with your document release is perfect. Thank you, Maya. I attended the Chicago Children's Hospital Charity Gala, the same event where I had met Devon 6 years earlier. Back then, I was the promising young surgeon he pursued. Now I walked in alone, my presence sending ripples through the ballroom. Maya, how brave of you to come, said Margaret Whitestone, her smile tight with curiosity. The children's ward needs support regardless of personal circumstances, I replied, accepting a flute of champagne. Throughout the evening, I watched the social choreography. Devon's former colleagues clustered in corners, bodies angled away from anyone tainted by the scandal. Former clients moved through the room like refugees, trying to establish new alliances while their frozen assets left them scrambling. Near the silent auction tables, I overheard Sean's wife, Jessica, telling a small group. We had no idea, of course. Sean barely knew Devon outside of work functions. Please, another woman laughed. Sean was at every boys' night. Remember that Las Vegas trip? They were celebrating something. Jessica's voice dropped. Sean mentioned it once. Said Devon found a creative solution to a funding problem. We should have known creative meant illegal. These small acknowledgments of willful blindness were building blocks in a larger structure of accountability. My lawyer would be very interested in Sean's prior knowledge of the so-called Singapore deal. The divorce proceedings began 2 weeks later. Devon arrived with a strategy breathtaking in its audacity. His attorney argued that my substantial surgical income should be factored into the settlement, that my earnings should offset his current inability to work due to criminal proceedings. Your Honor, Devon's attorney said, Dr. Lawson earned over $400,000 last year. Mr. Hartley's career has been destroyed by charges, my attorney Diana Brooks interrupted. Based on evidence Dr. Lawson provided. Diana produced a folder that made Devon visibly pale. We have discovered cryptocurrency wallets in Mr. Hartley's name containing approximately $200,000 in Bitcoin purchased over 18 months. There is also an art collection valued at $300,000 stored in a climate-controlled facility in Schaumburg under his mother's name, but paid for with marital assets. Devon's attorney scrambled. Diana was not finished. A boat registration in Michigan. An investment property in Wisconsin. A safety deposit box containing gold coins and bearer bonds. By the end of the hearing, Devon's position had crumbled. He would leave the marriage with his criminal defense attorney fees and nothing else. 2 days later, Lauren Coleman called me. Brandon's wife had discovered her own cache of evidence and wanted to compare notes. We met at a quiet coffee shop in Lincoln Park. Brandon recorded everything, she said, sliding a Universal serial bus drive across the table. He had an app that automatically recorded calls, including ones with Devon. The recordings are damning, moving money, targeting other accounts, jokes about us being too stupid or too trusting. In one call, they laughed about a retired teacher whose entire pension they drained. Her name was Dorothy Pruitt, Lauren said. She taught 3rd grade for 40 years. They took everything. That conversation led to another revelation. Lauren had been contacted by 5 other women, wives of co-conspirators and victims. We organized a meeting at my house the following week. 7 women gathered in my living room on a Thursday evening. We ranged in age from 23 to 68, united by our connection to this web of financial crime and emotional violence. There was Margaret Chin, whose husband's entire 401k had vanished. Patricia Williams, whose husband had been Sean's partner before the collapse. Linda Martinez, who discovered her husband had been facilitating money laundering. We are not just victims, I said, opening the meeting. We are witnesses. We have information that can expand this investigation. Margaret nodded. I have been documenting everything for months. My husband thought I did not understand finance because I taught elementary school. He was wrong. Over wine and carefully organized evidence, we built our case. Each woman contributed pieces, recorded conversations, suspicious documents, financial records that did not add up. Patricia had emails showing the crimes went back 5 years. Linda had photographs of meetings that supposedly never occurred. They thought we were decorations, Linda said. Pretty things to display while they built empires on theft. They never imagined we were paying attention. By the end of the evening, we had enough to widen the federal investigation significantly. Our group chat became a command center for accountability. We committed to ensuring justice reached beyond the primary conspirators. 9 months later, we sat together in a federal courtroom for Devin's sentencing. The courthouse rose against a harsh February sky like stone bars. I arrived early, reviewing my victim impact statement one final time. The courtroom filled gradually. Lorraine arrived in black, composed but aged by months of revelation about her son. The other women filed in behind her. Jasmine was too close to her due date to travel, but she had sent a written statement for the judge to review. When they brought Devin in, the orange jumpsuit had replaced his tailored suits. Federal custody had worn away his polished exterior. He had lost weight. His eyes searched the gallery until they found mine, holding for a moment before I looked away. Mrs. Hartley, the prosecutor said, you may deliver your statement. I stood. The podium felt solid under my hands. Your Honor, I am not here to talk about the money Devin stole, though the damage extends to dozens of families. I am here to talk about the theft that does not show up in financial records, the systematic destruction of trust disguised as marriage. Chains clinked as Devin shifted. For 5 years, I was married to a man who treated cruelty as entertainment, who publicly humiliated me at social gatherings and then told me I was too sensitive when I objected. I found receipts hidden in his office, jewelry, spa treatments, gifts purchased but never given, kept like trophies, while he told me we needed to budget. Lorraine made a small sound and pressed a tissue to her eyes. Those same receipts were filed with documentation for Jasmine's apartment, as if betrayal were just another business expense. He kept spreadsheets, Your Honor. Spreadsheets tracking his lies, his affairs, and his stolen money with the same precision he used to police our household expenses, while telling me my surgical equipment purchases were excessive. I looked directly at Devin. At a party in front of colleagues and friends, he told me he would rather kiss his dog than kiss me. He said I did not meet his standards. That room laughed while my marriage ended, turned into entertainment for people who knew about his affairs and theft, but said nothing because it was more fun to watch me not know. The judge leaned forward, expression grave. The financial crimes destroyed retirements and futures. But the emotional violence destroyed something deeper. The ability to trust, to feel safe in your own home, to believe that love means more than performance and possession. He did not only steal money. He stole years of my life, my confidence, my faith in partnership. That theft has no restitution amount. I returned to my seat as others gave their statements. Dorothy spoke about losing her entire pension. Anthony's father described the betrayal of trusting his son's best friend. Jasmine's written statement was read aloud about workplace predation and abandoned promises. When the judge finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of everything he had heard. Mr. Hartley, the federal guidelines suggest 5 years for your financial crimes. However, the aggravating factors, the breach of fiduciary trust, the exploitation of marital assets, the systematic deception, warrant a departure. I sentence you to 7 years in federal prison. The gavel came down with finality. As the guards prepared to lead him away, Devin turned toward me, mouthing words that looked like, I am sorry. I was already turning away, reaching for Lauren's hand, then Margaret's, forming a chain of women who had survived and were now unbreakable. Lorraine approached as we left the courtroom. Maya, what you said in there, I never understood what he put you through. I failed you as a mother-in-law. I am deeply sorry. That evening, my apartment filled with the same women who had gathered months earlier, but the atmosphere had shifted from grief to something like hope. Lauren arrived with champagne purchased with funds from Tyler's seized assets, a detail that made us smile grimly. To justice, Margaret said, raising her glass. To survival, Patricia added. To never being silent again, Linda concluded. We shared updates on our new lives. Lauren was back in school, pursuing a law degree she had once abandoned. Margaret had started a foundation for elderly victims of financial fraud. Patricia was dating again, slowly, carefully, but with hope. I read a letter from Jasmine. She was 8 months pregnant, planning to raise the child with her parents' support. She was writing a book about predatory workplace relationships and asked if I would write the foreword. I want to call it Standards, her letter said, because men like Devin always talk about standards while having none themselves. As the evening wound down, we promised to keep our monthly dinners. We had become an unlikely family, bonded by betrayal, but defined by resilience. You know what struck me most about your statement? Lauren asked at the door. You did not just expose what he did. You exposed who he was. There is power in that kind of truth. After she left, I stood at the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere in federal holding, Devin was beginning his 7-year sentence. Somewhere in Iowa, Jasmine was preparing for motherhood. Somewhere in this city, other women were living with similar secrets, shame, and confusion about love versus control. I thought about the woman I had been at Anthony's party, frozen while strangers laughed at my humiliation. She felt like someone I had known once but could barely remember now. In her place stood someone harder but clearer. Someone who understood that real strength was not enduring cruelty. It was exposing it completely and without apology. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Anthony's former penthouse, casting long shadows across marble that had witnessed my public humiliation exactly 1 year earlier. The realtor, a brisk woman named Beth who did not know the history, gestured at the view. The seller is highly motivated, she said. The bankruptcy trustees want this sold quickly. At half the original purchase price, it is an incredible opportunity. I walked to the spot where I had stood while Devin compared me to a dog and ran my hand along the cold glass. The terrace doors were open. The same marble, the same walls, but stripped of furniture and pretense. Smaller now. Less intimidating. The maintenance fees are reasonable for a property of this caliber, Beth continued. And with your pre-approval amount, you could easily. I will pass, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. She looked confused. But you have not even seen the. I do not need to own this space to know I have already conquered it. I took one last look at the empty room. Some victories do not require possession. Sometimes walking away is the triumph. 2 weeks later, my article appeared in a major medical journal. When success blinds high-achievement professionals to intimate partner deception. I examined how career-focused individuals, particularly in medicine and law, often missed signs of emotional and financial abuse. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My hospital email filled with messages from other doctors, lawyers, and executives, mostly women, some men, sharing their stories of partners who saw achievement not as something to admire but something to exploit. Harvard Medical School invited me to speak at their conference on physician wellness. Then Stanford. Johns Hopkins. Dozens of institutions across the United States. Each engagement revealed the same pattern. Accomplished professionals so focused on their work that they explained away red flags as stress, dismissed cruelty as tough love, rationalized exploitation as partnership. Your article saved my marriage, a young resident told me after a talk in Boston. Not because it helped me fix it, but because it helped me realize there was nothing left to fix. I had been performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation on something already dead. 3 months later, I stood in my parents' backyard in Milwaukee, watching my father blow out 70 candles on a cake my mother had perfected. The same relatives who had attended my wedding to Devin were there, but the atmosphere was different, lighter. I never liked him, my Aunt Patricia announced after her 3rd glass of wine. His handshake was too firm, like he was trying to prove something. You said he seemed charming, my mother reminded her. I said his teeth were very white. That is not the same thing. Laughter rippled through the yard, and I realized this was the first family gathering where Devin's absence felt like relief rather than an awkward subject to avoid. "Maya, my father called, come here. There is someone I want you to meet properly." David Patterson stood near the garden my mother tended, surprisingly comfortable in jeans instead of his usual suit. "Your father invited me," David said, slightly embarrassed. "He said I needed to try your mother's potato salad before I could claim to understand the Midwest." "And?" I asked. "Life-changing," he admitted. "I may need the recipe for evidence." My father beamed with a matchmaking pride I gently ignored. David and I had developed a friendship built on mutual respect and absolutely no romantic undertones. It was more valuable than most people understood. "Lorraine called yesterday," David mentioned quietly when my father got distracted by arriving grandchildren. "Devin is appealing his sentence." "Let him," I said, watching my mother fuss over Erica's kids. "Appeals require new evidence. All he has are the same old lies in a different order." 6 months later, I stood in an operating room preparing for one of the most delicate surgeries of my career. A senator's 17-year-old daughter needed a complex valve repair, the kind that required absolute precision. 7 hours later, I emerged to find the senator waiting with tears in her eyes. "You saved her life," she said, gripping my hands. "How can I ever repay you?" "I was doing my job," I replied, as I always did. "No," she said. "This is more than a job. This is a gift. Have you ever considered healthcare policy? I am forming a committee on medical access reform. We need voices like yours." I considered the offer for weeks. It would mean less time in surgery, more time in Washington, District of Columbia. Less direct healing, more systemic change. The kind of opportunity that would have thrilled Devin for the prestige. But I was not Devin. I did not need external validation to know my worth. Standing in my office with the acceptance letter on my desk, I thought about that woman on the dance floor. The one who leaned in for a kiss and received public humiliation instead. She had been so desperate for connection that she ignored every warning sign. She needed to be destroyed for this version of me to emerge. Devin's cruelty did not break me. It broke the shell I did not know I was living in. His public rejection forced me to reject the life I had been accepting, the diminishment I had normalized, the cage I had been decorating instead of escaping. I signed the committee acceptance letter with the same steady hands that had saved the senator's daughter, that had packed Devin's belongings, that had held the microphone at countless speaking engagements where I told the truth about marriages that look perfect from the outside but are crime scenes within. The woman who stood frozen on that dance floor was gone. In her place was someone who understood that real power does not come from being chosen or included. It comes from choosing yourself, validating your own worth, and including your voice in conversations that matter. Some words sting, others heal. The truest words, the ones that cut deepest, are the ones we finally say to ourselves. I deserve better. I am enough. I choose me. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.